Honeysuckle has always smelled kind of like buttered popcorn to me. My whole hillside here is covered with honeysuckle and other flowering bushes. So when you come outside, this smell can be really overwhelming, especially on a warm day. And overall, it smells like buttered popcorn to me. But when I just smell one up, close, it doesn't smell the same. So it must just be the mixture of everything that we have going on here on this hill. These plants here are dewberries, and it will still be a couple of months before these are dark purple, sometimes reddish berries, and they are often mistaken for blackberries, but they're not. They're called dewberries. So I don't know if that is just something about the South or if dewberries are all over the place, but I grew up in Oregon where blackberries are wild all over the place. Much bigger than dewberries. Somewhere deep back in there, there are some deer. I saw them looking at me as I drove in the driveway a little bit ago, but of course, they are not going to come out for my video. We do have a lot of really neat forest animals here near our property. Raccoons and foxes, possums and bobcats, and just all kinds of stuff. So we are really blessed to live in such a pretty part of town. It does seem like we are actually in the forest. And in a way we are, but there are also 40,000 people within 5 minutes of us. Each year we get a different mixture of these pretty flowers here growing in this bed. I believe they are irises. This year we got this really pretty purple and yellow one. I'm not sure if we have had this one before, but it's really beautiful. And it looks like we'll be getting some more over there. I love this golden hour of the evening. Just as the sun is getting ready to go down, it's so beautiful. Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Sarah. This is my granny era. So I am out on my porch tonight. It is a really nice evening and it's getting kind of quiet and cooling off a little bit. I wanted to share with you guys the stuff that I read in the last week. It's not as much as I normally do, but we had a pretty busy week. So earlier in the week, my son and his wife had their third baby. So we are now grandparents of a baby girl. Her name is Aya. And so we got to watch our grandsons for a couple of days while Aya was in the hospital with mom and dad, and everything's wonderful. She's a sweet, sweet little baby, and lots of dark hair, so that was a blessing for sure. And then my son, our youngest son, turned 15, so we had his birthday celebration and all that goes with that. And oh, and I guess it was Mother's Day too, so I'm planning to show you guys my haul, my Mother's Day haul, on my book haul video at the end of the month. Been a good week. So I have read 2 books and I'm almost done with a third. And weirdly, the 2 books that I read this week both had to do with time travel. And I'm not normally, like a sci-fi sort of person, but somehow I just ended up with these 2 time travel books. So the first one is From Time to Time. This is by Jack Finney. This is the sequel to Time and Again, which I talked about in a previous video a year or so ago. I'll link that for you guys. So I do really like these books that Jack Finney wrote. So the first one he wrote, Time and Again, he wrote in the late 1960s. and his main character time travels back to the 1800s in New York. And it is just full of so much cool history and photos and artwork from that time period that the author kind of makes a part of his story. So if it's like a painting of a snowball fight, like he worked the snowball fight into the story and then just talked about how somebody drew a picture of it. So it's a really great book. I really, really love that book. I've read it so many times. It's one of my favorites. The sequel to it, this one, From Time to Time, this is my second time reading it, and I liked it okay, but not nearly as much. So this one he wrote like 20 years later or something, the early 90s. And it's a follow-up, same characters, you know, and the main character has a different time traveling experience that I did not enjoy nearly as much. The author just kind of went on these rambles. I guess it's just outdated. So the things that he was talking about may have even been outdated for the early 90s, but it was, I don't know, just like political and social stuff that doesn't really apply anymore and just wasn't interesting. And most of the book was that way. It also had a ton of profanity and just other stuff in it that it just made me not enjoy. The very end of it involves the Titanic, and it's just for like a couple of minutes and then it's done. And so I feel like the author could have done so much with that story. The Titanic, you know, going with the direction of the Titanic, like that could have been a really cool story, but he didn't choose to do that. And I wonder if maybe like someone kind of talked him into writing this sequel, and it would have been better if he just left it alone. But he's written other short stories about time travel and other stuff too, Jack Finney. He's the guy that wrote The Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and a very popular author of his time. But like I said, I don't read a lot of like sci-fi, so I don't really know, like, is he super popular? And I just don't realize that. So anyway, but I read that, and I'm glad I read it again, but I probably won't read it again for a really long time. I might get nostalgic one of these days, but not for a really long time. One of the things, though, that I did do with his first book and then also did with this is I've made little notes in the book where, like, an update on history, right? And so, for instance, I guess this must have been in the 1960s, but the guy is talking about different ocean liners, and he is talking about the QE2, like the book or the ship that was named after Queen Elizabeth II. And he says something like, you must sail on her if you ever can. He says, I can't afford it. And the other guy says, well, you know, basically save up, because when she's gone, would they scrap the QE2, as of course they will, picking her bones and selling the skeleton for the last dime of profit, there'll be no more Atlantic liners, not ever. She's your last chance to know one of man's most pleasurable experiences. She's talking about how, like, that's like the last ocean liner that, you know, it's just phasing out as something, you know, that people would do. And, you know, for long travel, I guess. And so that was the 1960s, and then I looked it up, and sure enough, the QE2 went out of service in 2008. And currently, it is a floating hotel in Dubai. So just things like that. I just like to make little historical updates, right, for like future me. And then something else, this was just kind of a note that I just thought really applies to all, you know, historical studies, whether we're talking about time traveling or any other kind of historical studies. He says, people of other times aren't simply people like us except for the funny clothes. These faces were different, even the children's, formed by thoughts, events, and feelings of the unique experiences of their own time. And that's true, right? You look at faces in photographs and film from a long time ago, and they do look different, right? The voices are different. The way they carry themselves are different. Because it was a different time with different experiences and different things that affected them. And it is very interesting. It's kind of like when you look at, you know, photos or film of women in the, you know, 30s, 40s, 50s. Like, those women who are even my age just look so much older to me. I'm 45, and you know, when I look at women of that time, like watch Leave It to Beaver, right? I mean, surely Mrs. Cleaver is younger than 45 if she's just got those 2 young kids. So, but you look at her and you just assume she's older, right? So anyway, it's just a whole thing, but it just got me thinking about, you know, history and time and stuff. All right, and then on my last book haul video, I talked about how I had picked up the 3rd in the Timeless series by Gabrielle Meyer. I didn't realize that the books actually go in order, like it's a family and it builds on each other, but thankfully one of you told me that. And so I ordered book 1 from Amazon. This one is called When the Day Comes. And yeah, so now I gotta order book 2, then I can go to the one that I actually bought. But I liked it okay. I did like the historical information. I thought, you know, it was pretty well researched and detailed, and I did like her writing style also. It didn't seem to, you know, I don't know what the right word is. It was, you know, had some depth and all that. It was a mature writing style, so I appreciated that. I think that my biggest hang up with it is it just kind of wraps up way too conveniently. It just wraps up really nicely, and it's not like I want someone to have a bad ending, right? It's not like I don't want them to have a happily ever after, but when it just sort of wraps up so easily, it makes it hard to believe. Now, we are talking about a book on time travel, so that's not super believable anyway, right? But I don't know. I just felt like it was really convenient, and just the happy ending kind of made me like, really? But I am glad that she got her happy ending. So if you're not familiar with this series, in this one, the main character, Libby, she has the ability to time hop between 2 different time periods, worlds, lives, eras. And so she is hopping between kind of like Edwardian era, New York and England, and then like Revolutionary War era, America. She has this is a hereditary ability, and not all of her siblings carry this ability. So when she was born to this mother in the mid 1700s, she was also born to another mother in the late 1800s. And but the mother in the mid 1700s is the mother that she inherited this ability from. So basically, she has to decide which era she wants to end up in, because when she turns 21, then whatever era she decides, that's the era she stays in forever. She's locked out of the other one. So language at the beginning of the story makes it pretty clear what era she's going to choose. There really were no surprises until at the end. There was one surprise that ends up making the book end happily, but also, like I said, not super believably. But the rest of the book, pretty predictable, but still a good story, really. And so I'm gonna move on to the next one and see what I think. And I guess there's like 6 of these now. The 6th one I think is coming out this fall, 6th or 7th, maybe 6th. So we'll see how far I get into it before I finally say enough is enough, but it wasn't bad. I'm not in love with it either. Also, sometimes you do got to give grace on the first book in a series, and that storyline cannot be easy to write. So yeah, we'll see. All right, and then finally, I am just about done with Tempest at Annabelle's Lighthouse by Jamie Jo Wright. So as you guys heard me say a couple of weeks ago, Jamie Jo Wright was an author that I struggled with, and I struggled to read several of her books before I finally did finish, what was that one called that I just read? The one about Predicament Avenue. Yeah, I read that and enjoyed it, and so This one I am also enjoying. I will talk more about it obviously in my next wrap up, but in this one we have a dual timeline, 1874 and then present day. There is a supposed ghost who haunts a lighthouse, which I'm from Oregon, and so a lighthouse attached to a house is an interesting concept. Our lighthouses look a little bit more like this, and so I thought that was interesting. It's like a lighthouse attached to a cabin in the woods, so that's kind of crazy. But anyway, apparently this ghost haunts the lighthouse, and then 20 years later, a young girl shows up at the lighthouse with amnesia, and the people who live there take care of her. You quickly find out that they actually do know her, but they are not giving her information about herself for various reasons. So she is, you know, frustrated and etc. And then the present day storyline is a woman shows up at the lighthouse to rent a room there, because now it's kind of like a, you know, an Airbnb or whatever. And so she rents a room there, and she is researching for a book that she is writing. She likes to write books about history of places. And so she is there, and she is also like considering leaving her husband, I guess, having marital struggles. And so she goes there and various things happen. Which I will not spoil this book for you. But I will say that this is the second time in a row now that I have pulled out one of Jamie Jo Wright's books and found that the main character I deeply despise, but mostly because her character flaws are my character flaws. This one's really speaking to me, guys. There's a lot in there about how of her relationship with her husband and how she takes him for granted, and just is very self-absorbed and etc. And I'm not that bad. My marriage is fine. My relationship with my husband is great, but the expectation of being treated like a queen all the time without recognizing the need for, you know, the reciprocal behavior and paying attention, you know, being so consumed with my own emotional state without really recognizing how it affects those around me until, you know, I've gone too far. That's an issue. That's always been an issue. And so anyway, it's really speaking to me, and I am really enjoying it. Kind of. Okay, I'm not enjoying like the therapy session part of it, but I am enjoying the story. So I should be done with that tonight, and then I don't know when I'm gonna start, but my husband actually, ironically, bought me this for Mother's Day, and I like it, and he did good. He picked out a good one. He also bought me a couple of other great bookish gifts, but like I said, will show those in my book haul video. Alright, so this video is a little bit shorter than my normal because I didn't read that much, and because I want to show you guys some footage from the trip that my mom and I and our friend took out to Eureka Springs here in Arkansas. When my mom was here, I've been meaning to put up the rest of our, you know, adventures, footages, and I just haven't been able to because it's been a busy week. So I will add that here to the end if you guys are interested in seeing what it looks like in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. And I hope you guys are doing great. I will see you soon. Bye-bye.
sit down. Should we go in and get a treat and lunch? Well, there's shaded benches clear over there. Clear over there. Do you want to do that, Sarah?
Sure.